In 2023, 150K fantasy coaches jumped into the app and took their shot at winning the overall prize. I'm lucky enough to have Rob Fung here, the guy who came third place in 2023. Now, Rob, great to have you here and great to be seeing a team reveal for Fung's Fantasy Flukes. Bit of a tongue twister, mate. But do you think you can do better than third place this year?
I am determined not to get KFC vouchers and get a trip to Magic Round this year. So I'm aiming for number 1 this year.
Mate, you were in the prime spot. Look, third place, if you can back that up and if you can do better or even the same, you're looking at a good spot. I'd also like to skip the KFC, trying to get a bit skinnier myself.
Yeah.
But look, man, this is a pretty interesting roster. So, look, obviously knowing you and knowing you bought Tolotau Cola with 3 weeks to go last year, you're a man who loves a pod, and there are some serious pods in this team. I'm going to throw it to you first and just jump a guy in here. So, Tilly Tupanua, what's got you buying him for your roster?
He's really cheap. So he's not been a fancy gunner, I guess, but he's been okay. Like he's always around the previous to last year, it was like a 600, 650K kind of player. Has his kind of, 40 pointers, but then can score tries well. And now this year's back and looks like he's fit and looks like he's secured the 80-minute edge roll. Well, I'm hoping he's secured the 80-minute edge roll there. That's the thinking. So, but it's just his price, dual position, in hopefully a better Roosters team this year. It's kind of, to me, it's like a no-brainer.
Man, I'm nervous about his role, but yeah, look, 421K, dual position, it's pretty nice. I'll throw another one to you because you don't have Payne Haas in your team. I'm of the view that he is almost a must-have kind of player. What's led to you not picking him up?
Just couldn't fit in all the guns to me, and he's quite a high price, and obviously he's the best mid, or yeah, definitely the best mid, but it's just such a high price, and I feel like I can pick him up later. I don't think his price will run away. Like, I don't think he's going to be a $1 million player. I could be wrong, but I don't think he's going to get up there. So I don't feel like I need to have him from day one. And, Murray had a terrible season last year by his standards, but I think at his price point, he's got the ability to match Haas. And if he keeps his minutes, can find the try line again and keep his form that he had in previous years, then I think he can match Haas. So that's why I chose Murray about 100K cheaper than Haas.
It's a big call, man, because you've saved some money in your forward pack with Jamin Salmon, Brendan Piakura. Obviously, Piakura named, which is great. Salmon, that obviously depends on him starting at lock. But what I'm really interested in with this team is with the configuration, I look at this backline. You've spent big cash in your backline in a season where most people are shying away from that. You've sort of zigged where others have zagged. The Tedesco pick is really interesting. Rapana. Look, in terms of the overall strategy, because we can go into the players next, because we're going to go into sort of how you make these calls. But in terms of the strategy and how you've decided to load up the backline, what are you thinking here?
It's funny because traditionally I don't like to load up the backline, and I haven't really done it on purpose as such this year. But Pappenhausen is never left my side from day one, so he's a must-have, I think. And Rapana, I think he's a great value. Obviously, he's got the Ricky Stewart risk, but I'm happy to take a punt on him because he at fullback he does go well, and at that price, if he keeps his spot for maybe 5 or 6 weeks, hopefully at the minimum, he's worth it. Tedesco, honestly, I'm not 100% sold yet. I've got him there. I'm looking at that draw the Roosters have, and it's not fantastic, and so I'm kind of questioning that Tedesco. I looked at him in the trials. It looked like he was, I wouldn't say back to his Teddy of 2 or 3 years ago, but he did look better than he was last year. So he's cheapish compared to the kind of elites, Pongers, Latrells, etc. So I've got him there, but honestly, I'm not 100% sold there. So he might not end up in the final team. Yeah.
And the centers, you and Aitken, Will Penasini. I'm guessing the Aitken thing is just if he starts in the back row, you trust he'll play big minutes.
Correct. Yeah. So, the traditional wisdom is don't spend big in your centers, but when you have someone that's playing in a second row and hopefully he gets the minutes and keeps his role, you just got to have him, right? He's underpriced, and he'll be a keeper if he keeps that role. Penasini, once again, he looked really solid during the trials. He's pretty expensive, and I don't think he's got that much value in him, but I would like to. There's not much out of centers I'd like, and at 582, it's still not crazy expensive. It's not in your gag eyes Tago kind of range. So I think Penasini year on year he seems to get better. So I think he's slightly undervalued, and I think I want to solidify that kind of center role that someone can get 20 points in there. I don't want that week to week.
Yeah, Penasy is a guy you could probably lock in. To be honest, both of them, you could lock them in for the rest of the season. And theoretically, you could probably have this back five for the next sort of 3-4 months, and you wouldn't be too upset if they stay in the positions they are. Look, going into, because this is the team, right? And this is pretty cool. But there's a reason why you came third last year, and so many of us didn't. So I'd love to jump into sort of the method behind the madness here, and jump into your deeper spreadsheets and get a feel for how you've rationalized this, how you've prioritized some of these picks. So, look, talk me through this. What exactly am I looking at here?
Yeah, so in a video we did last year, I kind of revealed, not my secret, but my formula is I usually like to have a third of each category. So each category is obviously the cash cows, the mid ranges, and the guns. So each year I try to have a mix of those, roughly a third. It's not exact science, and it just depends on every year what's available. But the reason why I do that is I think obviously guns, you don't want to have not enough guns because later on you got to trade them in. It's going to cost you trades. Cash cows obviously speaks for itself. You got to generate cash, and the mid ranges to me is like a sweet spot where hopefully you pick them right, and they make you money, and they also get you points because you don't want to get too far behind at the beginning of the season. What I've learned in the past years is when I use the kind of cash cow gun strategy, I would get behind because maybe I had the wrong mix. Maybe I had too many cash cows. And then the cash generation came or it came too slowly and then you're behind in points and it just kind of didn't work. So for the last maybe 3 years or 3 or 4 years, I've kind of used this third formula and it's worked pretty well.
Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. I mean, look, it's a bit different to Biz's approach where he just goes guns and cash cows. If you're a mid ranger, get out kind of vibe. But it's super interesting. You've saved money as well where others haven't. So I mean, we're going to work through this list here, and we'll go through the forwards first. Harry Grant's your hooker. I believe he's your only hooker on the roster as well. So for a guy like Harry Grant, are you just thinking he's that far ahead of the rest of the pack, or what are your thoughts there?
Grant is one that if you look at the spreadsheet, I'm kind of unsure of at the moment because I don't like the buy in round 4. And the fact that him and Pappenhausen have a buy in round 4, that kind of scares me a little bit, having that much money on the buy that early. And then I'd have to rely on either Lustick or Hands, assuming they get a hooker roll to get a score. So at the moment, I'm a bit umming and ahhing, but when I put this team together, I thought he was by far the best hooker. So Robson's unreliable, Cook's getting old, Cheese is Cheese. We've all been burnt at least 4 times by him. So do we get burnt the 5th time? I mean, so there's no one else I really wanted in that role, but that buy in round 4 is kind of putting me off a little bit. So I'm starting to rethink whether I should kind of rejig at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there are some other guys there. There's talk of Reece Robson being value. You could talk about Damien Cook bouncing back. I think that's less likely. Jeremy Marshall-King, he was really good before his injury last year. Wade Egan, if he stays on the pitch, he has value. If Reed Marnie can stop missing tackles, he has value. So there's a lot of really dodgy options at hooker. I'll jump into the mids here next. We got Cam Murray, Ruben Cotter, Tavita Totola. And then on the bench, we have a couple of guys, McKaylee as well as Tupanua, who are middle eligible too. What are you thinking here with this structure? Because you've gone a bit more mid-ranger focused. Are you thinking that you're just going to get more sort of big scores out of those guys because you don't trust the cash cows, or are they just too hard to ignore?
Yeah, I think they're great value. Totola had some terrible games, terrible injuries last year, and I think he's at least 10 points on the value. Cotter as well. Cotter's always a player that I wanted to own. Once again, last year he had some injury niggles, Origin, etc. But this year, I think the Cowboys need him. So whether he plays like 60, 65 minutes plus is a question mark. But if he can get about 65 minutes, I think he's pretty decent at that price range. In terms of the other ones, Makalele, I've just got him there as a placeholder at this stage. I had to use that word.
Come on,
Yeah.
let's get excited about him. Let's get excited. He scored 60 plus in 2 of the trial games. Surely the trial form converts, right?
We'll see if he actually makes the side. It looks like he will, but
He was
he's got
elevated to the 30.
first things first, right? So
Look, he's on the way up, and Cohen has picked up that little injury as well. Not that you want that, but I reckon he's sneaky. I've been talking about him for a while now. It's cool to see that coming through. I'll throw some edge back rows as well. So look, Jamin Salmon, Brendan Piakura. Then on the bench we've got, I guess you could say Burbo. He's probably more of a center for you. And then Bradley, he's just center eligible, but he'll be playing in the back row most likely too. So yeah, for these guys, you've saved a bit of money here. Are you not buying into the mid ranges in the back row? Because most teams I'm seeing have a lot of those mid range back rowers, like a Sean Lane, for example.
yeah, there's a lot of them, isn't there? So Sean Lane, Wong has emerged out of nowhere, Blore
Yeah.
potentially, Lukey. So I haven't ruled them out. It's one of these things, right? So I was talking about Grant before. The knock-on effect is if I downgrade Grant, then all of a sudden I've got a bit extra cash to upgrade potentially to one of those guys.
Yeah.
So just that one move could cause a chain reaction to everything else. I mean, so with my spreadsheet here at the moment, the greens are the ones that I'm pretty set on. So assuming everything's okay on team list, the greens probably won't move. The reds and the oranges potentially may move. So that's why I'm not exactly sure yet. And there is a lot of value there. So Wong is an interesting one. That the whole Roosters deal at the moment, it's a bit up in the air, isn't it? What happens when JWH comes back? Does Butcher switch in last minute? Does he take some extra minutes? It's a bit worrying, but I think at this stage of the season, you can afford to make mistakes. You're not going to have the perfect team. So sometimes the value of a mid-ranger is that there's enough cash in those mid-rangers. If you do make a mistake, you can switch over to someone. And that's why I like to have a bit of cash in the bank, because the last thing you want is you realize, for example, Lukey's on fire. You have Sue Wong, who's about 50K cheaper, and then you go, oh no, I can't do it. So that's why I always like to have between 50 and 100K in the bank to make moves like that early on.
Yeah, I like that plan, man. I like that plan. I mean, swing for the upside, right? That's because you talk about getting to third place like you did last year. Was it like a season where you took a lot of risks, where you went different to everyone else intentionally, or was it more something that just happened?
It just happened. Like it just happened out of nowhere. Like I started not that great. Like I was about 2000s, and I'm not a risky pod type player. Like I always tell people, don't be different to be different. I mean, like go for the value. If it's obvious, just do it. I mean, and this season it's quite funny. I'm looking at all the Facebook teams. It is quite template this year. Like there's not many cash cows, so everyone's got a very similar looking team, apart from about maybe 5 players, and then it's a composition between Haas, Grant, etc., etc. So that's where luck comes in. I mean, like so, if Haas goes down, and then all of a sudden it's like a disaster and then that goes to any player. So it's a lot of it is luck, a lot of it is work as well. So it's a bit of it's a bit of a funny one.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I'm out here saying Payne Haas is a must-have. He's priced at 64. Last year, he didn't score below 60 until round 8, and it was because of a niggle. So I look at him, and there are some players where if they don't have a niggling injury, then they are unstoppable. He looks pretty fit in the trials. He did have that niggle about a month ago, but he looks pretty good now. So
what do you think he can average?
Sorry?
What do you think he can average?
I think if he doesn't go below 60 and you have a couple of those big games, we could see a 70 average over the first sort of couple of months of footy. Maybe even higher if we see more attacking footy out of him, which who knows? He evolves every year. Like last year, he went from 2 to 5 tackle breaks a game, and he doubled his offload rate as well. So I don't know. He's still young. He's still evolving. I just think there's a lot of upside in that. I want to throw a guy to you here that you've got, and he's in the unsure 2-point range. You got Drew Hutchison at 400K, a guy who's been churning out run meters in the trial games. He's been super involved. Looks to have won the spot over Sexton. What are you thinking here with him?
Just the price, I guess. And then he's always been pretty decent. At the Roosters, he was pretty decent. He's a good tackler. So I think he can get just tackles 20 base, and like you said, the run meters. He probably won't take that many kick meters off Burton, but I think just his base stats are pretty attractive, and he can find the try line. Like he's a little bit underrated. Like he's not amazing, but for that price, it's hard to ignore.
I love it. All right. Hypothetically, let's say I'm a first-time fantasy coach. What would you say to me? Like, what sort of lesson would you want me to take from your successes and your failures and your decades of fantasy sports?
Yeah, not decades, but I just like I said, don't try to be different all the time. Like I think that's a big one. Like I see people going, "Oh, everyone's got this player. I don't want him. I'm just going to do something else different." But there's a reason why most pods are pods because people don't want them. People that so that do research, understand the game. I see a lot of people say they want to be, get better at fantasy, but they kind of don't understand that underlying game. They don't understand how money's made. They just look at a player and goes, "I like the look of him, and I'll get him." But I don't know what they'll see a price and say, "Oh, that player is 800k," but they could be undervalued by 150k. But they just say it's 800k. I don't want to buy them. So you have to understand the game and understand how to price it, understand break evens, etc. There's a lot to kind of I guess soak up, and it took me at least 2 or 3 years to kind of really understand it. Because the first year you just have no idea, you just kind of plugging in players. I think the first year I played, I had about 8 Knights players because I just wanted Knights players.
Who was the you have Aquila Uwate back in the day, or Nathan
What's that?
Ross? Aquila Uwate, Nathan Ross. Was it Gidley days? Like how far back was it?
No, it wasn't that. It was like I think I started playing in 2019.
Wow,
So
recent.
yeah. So who was there back then? Can't remember. But I just
that was a rough Knights team. Like they always played hard, but they were going through it back then.
They were terrible.
Yeah.
And so first you had no idea, then you slowly get into it. It's more fun when you get your mates into it, and then you just slowly learn it. So and the other thing is, I guess, is just ask for advice. Plenty of kind of groups online these days. Obviously, casual athlete, there's heaps of kind of content. So just make sure you read up and listen to kind of experts or so-called experts. Yeah.
Look, our style is much more like we'll talk about 25 players a week. So we'll go for those surefire buys for cash cows, pods, guys to avoid, guys to sell. We just sort of give our view and we give the stats, but really you got to make your own calls. So we'll outline 5 pods a week. Biz and I and yourself now too, Fungy. We'll take maybe one of those guys, maybe, but a lot of the guys that we're talking about, we don't get 25 trades a week. So we're not moving on every single player we talk about. We're just giving you the data, you the information, you our thoughts on them, but we don't know everything either. So at the end of the day, it's your calls, and look, your calls are the ones that are going to get you above us on the rankings, or most likely beneath us because we're pretty good. I do have the league code down below this video as well. So if you think you're going to beat us, jump in there. There's about 1,800 coaches now in our Casual Athlete Fantasy League, which is
how good is that?
That's crazy, man. I thought I was going to get like 50 people in it, maybe. We got a few diehards who come on every week and always have good chat in the comments. But yeah, we've had heaps of people come through, so it's super exciting. And we love making this content. Matt, I'm going to throw it to you. Final word, because this might be your last video before we might make another one right before the games. But your final word before round 1, mate. What do you want to leave everyone with?
Make sure, because of the split round this year, that you've got your captain, vice captain locked on to someone that is playing on the weekend if possible. If not, I'm still taking the risk on Cleary, so I'll still throw the captaincy on him. But I'll vice captain Murray. So, and hopefully they both play. And then obviously there's making sure that you put in your players in the 13 if they start on the weekend. So that if you put them on the bench or on the emergencies, it doesn't allow you the flexibility of putting someone else in there if something happens to them. So if something happens during the week and there's a good player that comes in, if they're locked on the bench, then you can't move them out, and then you kind of left yourself a bit short. Yeah,
I like that. The only counter I drop in there is if you want it to be super bold, super risky, which is my style, you can put one of those players who's playing this week who's a bit dodgy, maybe a Ben Trebojevic or someone like that. You could put them in the 18th man role, and you could potentially loophole their score in tier 17 if they go well. The plus side there is that you'd get that score, but the minus is you're going to have to pick up a player who is on a bye, maybe an Nappy Coruscant or a Tigers player, or someone who's suspended for round one, injured round one, whatever it is. So that's a bit of a risky play.
Fast, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, there are some guys you can take, but it is risky. Awesome, man. Well, look, great to have you on, Fungy. Thank you for showing us your team. Look, I reckon you've got the team to go better than third this year, maybe second behind me. But I'll catch you this year, and good luck, everyone.